everyone. Good day. My name is Zohra. I'm our facilitator for the community corner this morning, and I welcome you all to our first session for this year, 2021. Topic for this morning is on child protection, and with me this morning I have the honor of welcoming Mr. Andrew Kulaniasi. Such a beautiful long name I struggle to pronounce, but thank you, Andrew. So thank you so much for giving us your time and your presence this morning to share with us your story. I'll just go through the rundown of our program this morning for the benefit of everyone. Is that we will have a story, a personal story shared by Andrew this morning, and then we will go through 20 to 30 minutes of discussion, and we will wrap up with our self-care session before we end the session off. So before we start, I'd like to, as part of our self-care and impact, encourage everyone who is listening or everyone who is watching, and also in our group here this morning, that we have the One Talk Counseling Helpline line. That's a professional counseling service that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The toll-free number is 715-08,000. And if any of what we discussed this morning brings your memory back to experiences that you may have gone through in the past, it reminds you of experiences that people you love and care about have gone through, please do not hesitate to reach out, to give a call, and to talk to a professional and qualified counselor. Also, they have a list of directory of different service providers in the city. So if you prefer face-to-face counseling, you can also call the hotline and inquire for information for your face-to-face counseling as well. So with that, thank you so much. We'll proceed with our discussions this morning, and before we do that, I'd like to hand the mic over to Andrew to share a bit about it. Andrew is such an interesting person. He's such an amazing person. He is someone who has gone through experiencing abuse in his own life. He is someone who has found the strength within himself and the support from people around him who loved him and who cared to listen, and he has overcome that. He has rebuilt himself. He has also been an agent of change to use that experience to bring out a positive message in his field of expertise to create a safer environment, a safer community, and that to break the culture of silence for children going through abuse, young people going through abuse. And we have the honor of having him this morning. So I thank you, Andrew, and I hand the mic over to you. I'd like to encourage you and everyone here this morning that this is a safe space, this is a safe environment for us to share. And so everyone seated here this morning is everyone who has a passion for the rights and protection of our children. And so you're not alone. We're all in on this together, and we're all passionate about this area. And please feel free to share your story and know that you are heard, you are cared for, and you are supported. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Andrew Kulaniasi. I'm currently 20 years old. I am a theater artist, so I'm a director, writer, and actor. I've been part of the Mosby Arts Theatre for almost all my life, and I started directing and writing when I was 15, and so people probably know me from my play Mesoka, and this year I have another play coming out called He is Victor, which is based on HIV and people living with HIV, discrimination of people living with HIV. So when I was 8 until I was 13, I'm really shaking. I was sexually abused by a family member well, he isn't part of the family, but he was brought into the family. He was adopted into the family by them. So I was sexually abused from the ages of 8 up till when I was 13. When I was really little, growing up, I had a lot of sisters and I had a lot of aunties that I sort of had been around a lot. And so throughout that time of being abused, I was also being bullied at school. And my family had always sort of had this motto of boys don't cry, which is something that I think we teach a lot of young boys here in PNG, boys don't cry. And every time I went to them for bullying at school, they'd always say, oh, you need to man up, and you need to, stop acting certain ways, or you need to, man up, and boys don't cry, you shouldn't be crying over this thing. Not knowing that I was being abused at home. The abuse continued until I was 13, and this particular man had then left the house, and he was living in Goroka, and still nobody knew. But he had gotten my number off of a family member, and he was messaging me very inappropriately. During that time, from 13 to 14, I was now in year 7 and about to continue to year 8 when my grades started slipping. And it was because I was both being bullied and being sexually harassed over messages from this particular person. That was probably the lowest point in my life. And so many people say, oh, but you're so young, how could you know what that felt, or how could you know that that was the lowest point in your life? And I know that because I was contemplating ending my life. So I got into grade 7, and my grades started slipping, and coupled with the bullying that was happening. And there was one particular incident that happened of bullying where I had lashed out and thrown, I think it was a ruler or a blade at the bully. And because of that, we had to go into separate counseling by our PE and PD teacher at the time. And I remember she goes, oh, Andrew, I've noticed that your grades are slipping, and I've noticed that you've been very quiet and you've been acting out. And so I told her. And I told her everything that was happening at home, everything that I was really afraid to tell my parents and my family. In PNG, when we refer to our family, it's, people expect that it's mom and dad, but I didn't grow up like that. I grew up in a big house where it was, so many people there living in that house. And so my family just, So I told her what was happening, and I told her that he was messaging me inappropriately, and I told her that I just wanted to die. I just wanted to not be here, not be in that space. I just wanted to die at that point. And it was because I felt like there was something wrong with me, because I was told that if both by my family and by my abuser, I was told when it came to bullying that I was the cause of it. But then by my abuser, when he'd message me, he'd tell me, oh, you want this. And to me, for some reason, when you tell, that made sense, that I was the one that caused my abuse, because my family had also been feeding me that I'm the one causing my bullying. And so I was so scared, because I thought, what are people going to think of me? How are people going to perceive me? How are people going to react in knowing that I've been raped? In knowing that, this person has taken advantage of me and my body in the house that I grew up in. And I just had nowhere to go, and I was there and I was crying. I was on the floor of the classroom, and my teacher lifted me up and she said, "It's not your fault." I will never forget that. She said, "You've done nothing wrong and you've done nothing to deserve this." And for some reason, I just thought, no, I've done everything to deserve this. But she was able to tell me that who I am and who I was okay, and that there was nothing that I could do to deserve someone to violate me like that. And after that, she had called in members of my family to the school office and told them what was happening at home. At that point, I had felt freer because I thought, oh, something's actually going to get done. So that was in year 8, and they were, year 7, and they had certain particular members of my family had found out about it, but nothing happened. And I remember getting to year 12 and going, oh, I want to go to school in Goroka, I want to go to UOG. And they're like, oh, you can't go because he's there. And I thought, I want to live my life. I want to go to school in the place that I want to go to school. And why haven't you done anything? There were only certain members of my family that did know, and the majority of them, I think, who were really key, that needed to know, didn't. The people that were responsible for bringing him into the house in the first place didn't know. And I'll never forget it. I was doing a play, and everyone was sort of really up in arms about the play. They were like, oh, we don't think you should be doing this for multiple reasons. And I was asleep, and it was 3, maybe 4 in the morning, and I hear my abuser. He had come to the gate of the house, and for some reason I'd woken up and I heard his voice, and every single sort of dread and terror had come back to me, and I almost pissed myself in the bed. I was so scared. But what was even more terrible was hearing members of my family who knew go up and greet him at the gate of the house. Members of my family who I thought supported me say nothing when he turned up at the gate. And I got so angry. I was so angry. And because we were already fighting about this play, this stupid play, I lashed out. And I lashed out very calmly and rebelliously in the sense that they thought it was about the play. And I remember members of my family called me ungrateful. And to be fair to them, I never went hungry. I went to some of the best schools in the country. I had everything I wanted. And so for people to call me ungrateful, I guess to them at that point, not knowing what I had been through, was sort of jest. And I'll never forget, I was on the phone. This particular family member was overseas. She had called to deal with me because the adults in the household couldn't, or were stressed out because they didn't know why I was acting out. And I was very calm. And this particular family member likes to, is one of those people whose words cut so badly. And she called me ungrateful. She said, you are, so dishonorable. How could you be fighting with the people that raised you? And I kept very calm because I was very angry. after she had finished, she went, "Do you have anything to say for yourself?" And I thought, this is such a great opportunity because she had just tore me down so much. And now I'm going to silence her. And so I retaliated with, "Oh, Auntie, I'm not angry because of some play. I'm angry because the man that raped me since I was 8 up till when I was 13 turned up at the gate, and the people that know did nothing." And she kept very quiet, and I just went for it. And I told her everything. I said, "You created, everyone in this house created a environment that was so toxic because I couldn't talk about my problems. And if I did talk about my problems, it was my fault. And there's just nothing that I could say that would make you believe that it wasn't my fault. And I can say that for all the good that you've done me, I'm so grateful, but this is what else you did. This is what you didn't do that mattered the most, because you didn't have to learn about STDs and then have to think, oh, I may have one because I've been raped. You didn't have to go to counseling, to churches, to people, to even teachers, and have them not understand the situation and ask, what did you do? You didn't have to go yourself to try and get STD treatment only to say that, oh, you need parental, permission for that. And I'm thinking, how just. And so after I had told her, I left the house, and I was living with my mom's people. I live with my dad's people. I was living with my mom's people, and to this day, nothing's been done about my abuse, about my case. I know that now, because I had that outburst, most of the family know, which I have to admit was a very difficult way for them to learn, because I was angry and I said very hurtful things to people that I love. And everyone likes to think about, oh, who deserves what, or who deserves the blame, or all that. And sometimes I think about it and it makes me angry, and then I realized, oh, I can't actually live with that anger, because I go up to the house that I grew up in, and at every room I can recall a time that, I can recall that I had an experience in that room. I can't go up and sleep in that house anymore because I'm afraid. I can't feel at peace in that house that I love, that I grew up in, because there's so much trauma. So when it came to trying to forgive, forgiveness, everyone thinks that forgiveness is, I'm sorry, okay, I accept. That's not it. It's an everyday thing. Every day I wake up and I go, you are not going to give this power over you. You're going to forgive them. You're going to forgive your abuser, and you're going to move on. Because the more that you hold grudges and the more that you hold on to that anger, it's going to destroy things that you want to build. And I saw it. I saw it with my academic work. I saw it with relationships that I wanted to have. I saw it with just everything that I wanted to touch that I was really angry about. And it became, okay, how do I tell my stories in a way that is fair, that isn't angry, but helps other people? So yeah, I think that I've been lucky in many ways because I didn't turn to drugs and alcohol. I had other outlets like theater, like just having really nice friends. I had great friends in high school and also in primary school that were there, and that helped me, that I could talk to, that knew about my abuse before anyone else. And I've been so lucky in that regards because I've been able to get my experience and go through it healthily, in a sense that I'm not being self-destructive, even though there are times where I want to be self-destructive and I want to like go out partying and just get wasted to forget about the pain. Because not many people, it's so easy for people to be like, oh, but you're so far away from that, you should be over it. But you're not. You go through every day with just trauma, with just, and it affects, and it just seeps into everything. It has. And so when I look at my life, I can see the effects. And in many ways, I've dealt with the effects. It's my family that hasn't. My family still can't have this conversation with me because they don't know how to deal with it. My family still can't come to terms with what's happened or with the effects. And it's hard because I love them. And every day I have to go, I forgive you. But it makes you angry because there are times that they can be insensitive. And there are times that they can ask the wrong questions or just not say anything at all. I would rather they ask the wrong questions than not say anything at all, because that's what I had. No one saying anything and no one talking about it. That contributed to so much silence that even now it's like, how do you break the silence? Now after it's come out, after the full story is there. Ooh. Thank you.
Andrew, thank you so much. Really appreciate that you could be so brave and strong for all of us this morning to share your story. Deeply appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts. It's not easy for people to come out like that and to be able to share a part of their life that is so personal to them, to everyone, because it's a sign of his strength, and it's a sign of the hero that he has become in his story. And just listening to him talk about the different phases and the steps that he's gone through to experience this, to be able to deal with it in his family home, to see that people whom he looked up for care and support and for salvation were quiet and were ignorant to it. And I think this is one thing that's experienced in different homes and in different parts of the community too, because when people are not informed, when people are unsure about what to do, they choose not to act at all. They choose not to make a decision. They choose not to say anything at all, and for many different reasons too. And then for him to look outside the family circle, because in the child protection space, you have the child in the nucleus, and then the second ring outside of that is the family. That's the nucleus family. So if he couldn't find that strength and support and protection in the nucleus family, he looked out to the second layer, the third layer, which was the community, and reaching out to his friends, reaching out to his teacher, to the counselor, to a representative or a member of the church community whom he was able to get help and support and recovery from. And so he found the most difficult but the most powerful thing, which is forgiveness, to be able to overcome that and to be who he is today and to be brave and strong enough to share his story. So Andrew, thank you so much for your story. I'd like to open the floor to discussions from the members present this morning and representatives of different organizations and parents, community members who are here. One part of the story that bothered him with the absence of his abuser was the use of mobile phones. And this person who committed the abuse would text and would call. We are fortunate to have Andy here this morning, Andy Rauga from NICTA, so I'll just pass the mic over to Andy to talk to us about the effects and the impacts of having improper use of devices such as mobile phones and what it can do to harm people. Thank you.
Thank you, Zohra. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. So as Zohra said, my name is Andy, and I'm attached to the Consumer Affairs branch of NICTA. And for those who don't know, NICTA is actually the National ICT Authority responsible for regulating the ICT sector, in particular telecommunications, radio communications, and ISP services. And a big part of NICTA's role also includes consumer protection and welfare, especially where online safety for consumers is concerned. Also, NICTA also facilitates the Safer Internet Day campaign, which is an annual program aimed at encouraging everyone to use the internet in a more respectful and positive way. So, just relating back to Andrew's story and his experience, I'd like to commend him, first of all, for being here today to share that. Thank you. And just to basically explain the concept of online safety and what it means for all of us. So when we talk about child online protection, the concept is if you start from your home in the family setting, you consider what the safeguards are in a home for children. And that would be the parents, first of all, the actual home, a fence around the house. So those are physical safeguards in an offline world. Similarly, when you talk about online safety, what are those safeguards in the online space that protect our children and our young people from risks that Andrew has clearly outlined in terms of unwanted contact from abusers, from anyone who is just not supposed to be communicating with our children and our young people. The internet has a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of ways in which our children and young people, everyone enjoys that privilege, I should say. And amongst other things, it's used for learning, to positively develop yourself. There's a lot of uses, but we have to recognize that there are also a lot of risks involved when it comes to the online space. And some of those risks include cyberbullying, which basically means sending harmful and humiliating messages to anyone online in order to, embarrass them. Image-based abuse, which basically means sending and receiving of inappropriate photos and videos of yourself to others, or just with receiving them from other people. And of course, online pornography. Those are some of the key issues that our children are faced with, whether they intentionally look for the pornography on their parents' phone or they come across it by accident, just by using the parents' smartphones. And of course, the amount of personal information that we all have online. A great example is the use of social media. Through our social media accounts, we share a lot of personal information, including our photos, details of where we live. We all use our formal names, so people can make an association between you and others, and who your children are, where they go to school. So there's so much personal information that we actually have in the online space, and a lot of people, as a result, take this for granted. in terms of their online safety, and not realizing that they should be more proactive in terms of trying to take control of their what's referred to as a digital footprint in order to mitigate the risks of what could happen to them online. And similarly, parents and carers play a key role where children's online safety especially is concerned. And that is because we as parents are the first line of support in a home where the child is, the parent or carer. Once you put a device in your child's hand, it is now up to you to start talking to them, because nowadays it's actually not enough to not allow them to hold phones. Because if you have that rule in your home, when they leave the home and go out to their schools or go out to where their peers are, their peers have those phones, and their peers have on those phones inappropriate content that you may not want them to be accessing. So knowledge is power, as they say. It is important that we be open with our children, maintain the dialogue with them in order to help them discern what is right and what is wrong. Our children and young people these days are quite tech savvy. The only disadvantage they have is they do not have the life skills to discern what is right and what is wrong, especially when they're confronted with certain situations, when it comes to people who are not supposed to be contacting them, making contact with them. And that can often lead to issues such as online grooming. So online grooming basically is when someone initially forms a relationship with a child especially, and that relationship can lead to the child being put in a position where they trust that person, and eventually they are sexually abused. And these are things we as parents and carers really need to be mindful of. We have to take a proactive approach. I realize it's a challenge for a lot of parents in order to keep up and try to understand, how their children are using technologies and the apps that they're using. But it really is a key responsibility for parents and carers especially. So just creating that safe space. Again, this is the safe space here in the Palm City markets, but creating that safe space in your own home where you make that your child confident enough to actually approach you and tell you when the risk is put on the line, or when their safety is compromised especially, and they don't feel comfortable with something they've encountered. They should know that they can come to you and tell you in the first instance. And just having that open dialogue with them is very important. So thank you, Zohra.
Okay, Andy, thank you. Thank you so much for giving us that insight. Really appreciate it. And now our parents these days really now need to see and to understand the impact and the responsibility that comes with issuing mobile phones. And, just like in Andrew's story, whoever has access to his number can cause harm as well. And there's something for us to think about and to talk about with our children as well, that responsible use of mobile phones and not issuing our children's number out unnecessarily, but being very guarded and selective with whoever has access to their number and for what purposes, and knowing who on the contact list is registered there. And she touched on important points about grooming, but before we come to grooming, what I found that was disempowering in the story was the culture of silence. And I'd like to listen from other members here about why do you think that culture of silence existed, and why was it so hard for parents and caregivers to be able to step out knowing that a family member has caused harm to a child, to say, no, you're not welcome, and no, we're not going to entertain this anymore? Why did it happen for so long? And this is a very common story. This is not a unique story. This is a story that we hear so many times in the newspaper, on the radio, and in and around our communities. Does anyone have a thought on that? We have Shirley from Magna Carta here as well, who's a human rights defender and a member to the board. So I'm releasing the microphone to hear her perspective on why the culture of silence and what we can do to break that culture.
Thank you, Zohra, and thank you, Andy. Good morning, everyone. Firstly, I didn't hear a story, but the last bit just kind of putting something strong, a bold statement in my heart this morning. And the community or the societal negligence is one of the things. When people see that there is wrong, they don't like to talk about it. People don't talk. They don't often talk about it. And silence is very strong. When our own families are silent and they actually deny the fact that there is a mistake, then you don't expect external families or other members of the community to actually talk about it. So it's not everyone in the space in the field of gender, human rights, or social work that have this. It's only few that have have this very strong confidence and the strong guts and this boldness in them to actually talk about it, to break the silence so everyone can actually hear about it. That's one. The other thing, Andy, I really appreciate the message that you gave this morning, and I hope a lot of viewers. I was online on Facebook for yours, so I know a lot will respond to it. It's really nice education for us parents and also for the users of mobile phone. And going back to Zohra, your question, what actually, it's not a concept, it's a practice. Every day it's a practice. It's a practice of systematic abuse. It's a practice of intelligent ignorance. It's a practice of people denying the fact that there is law. And when you have the systematic abuse and when you have the law and the people, the rights bearer in the middle, the one who should protect the rights, when they have this, nepotism, bribery, they don't know their job, when all these things comes in line, that's where you have the systematic abuse. So when systematic abuse comes in, you see it kind of continue with the cycle of violence. It kind of continue with re-victimizing the victim again. They can be victimized at the first place, but the impact and the degree or the severity of the impact is not that high. But when it comes to systematic abuse, re-victimizing, it's just too much. Sometimes it's really unbearable and people don't want to talk about it. It doesn't mean that people that are working in the space of human rights and gender, they've been engaged in counseling and social works, don't face this kind. They do face it. They do face it. Sometimes we talk about it, sometimes we don't talk about it. It's not easy to talk about it. So it goes back to individual people. It goes back to, the package of love and care you instill. If you have a quarter of love, then your outcome should be a quarter. When you have half, when you have the full capacity of love and protection to your own family, to the external family, to the spaces where you engage in gender protection and human rights or child protection or victim protection or refugee protection, wherever you engage in the space, you will actually show this. And then it's a passion. So for us, a lot of time I've been engaging or I've been telling people that once when we're in the field, we are not observers. We actually married to the work that we are doing. So we deliver with love, equality. So we empower and, We protect human dignity. So one of the main thing that I've seen is the systematic abuse. It's over and over and over again. In the process of everything, systematic abuse is there. One example, when a child is molested, sexual molested, and she goes to the clinic, you just look at the line at the clinic. She won't go quickly to a gynecologist. She really has to stay on the long queue. And then sometimes when we don't have child trauma counselors, when we don't have a proper referral package, the system itself continues to abuse the child. And then people, the parents, the carer, when they feel that they don't have the support, they just go in the middle and they give up. Just forget about going to the police station. Forget about going to the sexual offense squad. They won't help us. Forget about going to the medical. Forget about ending up at the courts. No one will help us. That's one, systematic abuse. Two, our compensation. Our compensation still stays strong. Did you see this week Monday's newspaper, front page national? The man plea for compensation so he can come out on bail. That was in Medang police station. National captured it on the front page. He wants to compensate for actually sexually abusing a girl. So as Zohra said, the most abusers and perpetrators are within the close family circles. They are not outsiders. They are not on the streets. They are not far away. They are within our own close family circles where every time you see them, you share boy and smoke with them. You say hi, bye to them. So it goes back to us, parents and carers, to always look out, be alert, be on watch. If we see something is not right, whether the way the perpetrator is talking, maybe one abusive joke or something, then tell your daughter, please don't talk with that person the next time. These are little practical things. Or maybe they go for a walk and then they come back 6:30. Just stop your daughter or your child or your son not to go around with that person. So as parents, we know that we send our child Monday to Friday, 7:30 they leave the house and then they come back 3:30 in the afternoon. You just realize that 3/4 of the day they are with someone. They are under the care of the teachers or whoever. And as mothers going to work, we never knew what actually happened at home. So always be on guard, talk about protective measures. Yes. Speak to your sons and daughters. If you actually buy his or her phone, please have some in-house rules, some users rules, how to actually handle the phone. Remove some of the programs on the phone. It's right. Just for you to call them and check them. They don't need to have every applications on the phone.
Absolutely.
So prevention measures start with us in our homes first, and then it goes out. And teach our sons and daughters, our children, to be resilient, vigilant, and look around. Perpetrators are always amongst us and with us, right. Close to us. Zohra, I hope I answer your question with the 2 action books. Thank you,
Shirley. Thank you, Shirley. Really appreciate it. Very insightful and very real about the current practices and the systems that we have in responding to preventing and protecting harm to children. And I think I really appreciate, one point about being practical and real in our everyday life with parents to actually realize and take note of our own children, actually notice and realize and have a real relationship with our children so that we can be able to pick up these things. So before we go to, I think one last point before our wrap up, I'd like to, and this is a very hard topic, but I think this is the avenue for it, and I want us to talk a bit about it, and that is grooming, and grooming within the family. What are some of your views about how and why grooming happens in the family, and why is it so easy for grooming to happen within the family by close relatives and by people who have access to children? Most of the cases that are out there today are cases by people, and these are, and I think the other point I want to make mention of is that everybody can be affected by this. It doesn't matter what economical background you have, how well educated you are, how many assets and property you have. All children are vulnerable to some extent. And that is when we have a lack of information as parents and carers, and when we don't have guidelines and we're not knowledgeable about what to look out for, what red flags to look out for when we are caring and nurturing our children from infant stage to toddler to young adolescents right up to the young adult life. Parents now, we have a big responsibility to really filter who we're opening our doors with. Just because a relative is coming from home or just because a relative doesn't have a place to stay, you have to really know now the background of who is coming into your home. You have to do your own checks and balances about it, because behaviors and intentions are not innocent and are not safe anymore as they were many, many years ago. So parents, moms and dads, we have a huge responsibility to really agree and to really know how long this relative will stay, what purpose are they bunking up at the house for how long, how many days, and when will they leave. And should we have a babysitter? And even if you're taking babysitters on as well, do also go through the profile of these babysitters, do appropriate checks so you know who you're leaving your child with as well. Just because you as a parent, have good relations with someone doesn't mean that they see you in that same light. There's some people out there who have a sexual interest in children, and it's real, and it's something that they want to carry out because of their urges and their personal justification about why it's right. And just to touch on one point in your story was that they made him believe that he deserved it, and they made him believe that he wanted it. And these are justifications that sexual offenders use to justify their actions and to minimize the impact of abuse. So I really want us parents to make it our responsibility this time and to be proactive. We have to be less reactive and wait for damage to happen and then be loud about it. No. Now we have to change our approach. If you choose to become a parent, if you're currently a parent, as I'm a parent too, all of us will have to be proactive, be informed. Know what the red flags are, because when you are informed, when you know what grooming is, when you know the signs of grooming, then you can detect it amongst your relatives in the house, in the workplace, in the church, in the sporting club, in the community. And you have to know who's getting close to your children and for what purpose. Okay? So parenting, unlike before, is now you have to step up your game. Parents now have to step up their game in parenting. It's not like before. We have to make it our duty to be informed and to take practical steps. Now, I liked what Shirley said and Andy said as well about making intentional decisions, making informed decisions about warning your child about whom not to spend time with and whom to spend time with, telling them what's right, what's wrong. Like for my two children, as they were growing up, I have 3 boys. They have been, babysitters have been bathing them up till they were 1 year old, and they started taking baths on their own by themselves. I don't allow anybody to bath my children. I don't allow children to go together to bath. So now my eldest is 10 years old and the second one is 6 years old. They take their own baths and they change it themselves. No relative is allowed to bath my children. And I'm also very mindful, if my child doesn't want to go with any relative to a shop or to a market, I take note of that. If they're very quiet and if they stay away from a particular relative, I take note of that. Because that means that there's something wrong with that relative, the relationship between that relative and my child. So I take serious note of that, and I later have a private conversation, or why didn't want to go with auntie or uncle, what happened? No, and they say in their own words. And when a child is trying to speak, don't interrupt and don't put words and don't prompt. Let them take time to talk using their own words. And you try to read behind the message what he or she is saying. So parents, you have to be very mindful about how your child is reacting to different relatives who come within your space and circle of influence, even if it's their own biological relatives, mom or dad or boo-boos, okay? So this is some practical and simple, parenting tools that we must have. And I'd like to kind of like use this opportunity to let parents out there know that we have a positive parenting program running. And for organizations, churches, or communities who are interested, Pikinini Watch does that. So please send us an email, call, or talk to us, and we can come to your community, to your office, and to run that. Because we cannot build a nation on broken people. We can build a nation on people who are healed, people who are developed, comprehensively in all 5 key areas of development. And our friends from Pikinini are wonderful with that in their early childhood care and development programs. Like, they know child development very well from the early stages. And if something such as, abuse were to happen, it will take a very detrimental effect. And you can comment on that as well. I'd like to also acknowledge the presence of Mariana here this morning. She also runs the Active City program with the Pikinini Pillai down in the South Side Fitness Center. And they also have, a program that helps to build a child's cognitive, social, emotional, spiritual, and development aspects. It's all very inclusive. So it kind of complements what the Book Club Pikinini group is doing with literacy, numeracy, and principle. So yeah, wonderful to know who's in the space and who's doing what. But I think many years ago, when we both were growing up, these programs were never there. And for children and parents who are out there now, do know that there are positive programs like that. There are positive schools like that for you to put your child in safe spaces to grow, to develop, and to mature their skills. And also for organizations running these programs. I'm so thankful that you both are here this morning, is that these risks are real, and you will come in contact with children who have gone through that, and being informed and aware in your role can help you stretch out that net of care a bit more intentionally, so your own staff, they are safe to work with children as well. So would you like to say anything?
I think that with, in seeing the signs and in seeing, sorry, I have to calm myself down so that I don't get emotional anymore. I think that, if there's a special type of ignorance that people have in going, it will never happen in my family. And I can say that was the ignorance that my family had. And then when I finally came forward, one of the questions that was asked was, "Oh, why didn't you tell us?" And I go, well, firstly, I'm telling you now. Secondly, when it first happened, I was 8, and I didn't know what was happening to me. And so conversations with your child about what is appropriate is important. Conversations about, okay, like if you're feeling a certain way towards a certain relative, because I can recall experiences where I was left in the house with him, even though I didn't want to be. I can recall conversations or experiences where I didn't want to be around that person, and it wasn't understood. And there is a very special type of ignorance, because people always think it doesn't happen, and then they get shocked. And with all the signs, like seeing the signs, it's about having conversations with kids. Absolutely. Not, and when is it appropriate to start having those conversations? Because I personally feel that if my parents had those conversations with me younger, yes, and allowed for a space where it was easier to talk, that I would have come forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and very, very interesting and very important lessons to be learned then for each and every one of us to take it away, and for each and every one of us to join hands with Andrew and to be loud about it, and to be intentional about it, and to say we have an issue now, and to say that we cannot keep silent now, and to say that parenting is much more than it used to be before. So yes, I'll give this opportunity to Shirley and Mariana and our rep from Book Club Pikinini. If you'd like to say something, please do so before we wind up.
Okay, thank you and good morning, everyone. Thank you, Andrew, for sharing your story. Thank you, Andy, for all this information. I will not make it too long, but I think one of the key points that I am taking here is about information and education. Like, this is so important, like for parents to know, for children to know. So like Andy was saying, we have these tools, the technology, internet, that we can use to learn too much, but also can be very dangerous. So we need to create these good spaces where we can teach the parents and the children how to use all these tools, and with this kind of experience, like Andrew sharing, make us realize that these things happen, because many times are happening, but we do like, we don't see are happening for real, and these things has names, so we need to start like talking and naming this with the proper name, so everyone can understand what it is and what it's okay and what is not right. So I think thank you, Zohra, for this space for us to share, and I hope we can spread it a little more.
Once again, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Well, I saw the post on Facebook, so I decided to come as a parent here.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
But very interesting about the topic, and it's really something that everyone has to talk about it. Thank you, Andrew, for sharing your story. After this, I will have to get Zohra's contact, because we deal with many children in the communities, and it's very important for this team to go out and also do awareness to the parents in different communities that we work with. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your attendance and presence this morning.
Once again, thank you, Pikinini Watch and Palm City Markets, to create this space so we can talk about child protection. Before we wind down, one of the things that used to came to my mind every time when we talk about child protection is, how do we define child protection from different spaces, like socially, legally, contextually, when you include all the, our societal experiences and the way we do transaction in our communities and our day-to-day. So how do we, as individual or as a group or family, define child protection?
Very good question, Shirley, and maybe also for the benefit of the viewers as well. Child protection is any approach, method, or system put in place to prevent, to protect, and to restore. So there are three phases. The first is prevention. We know and we acknowledge that abuse is there. We know that different groups of children now are vulnerable for different reasons. So we try to have the protection. Protection, for example, there's information awareness, education, and if in the event that through the cracks one of the children a child has been abused, what's the protection now? So prevention, protection now, that's stage 2. So if they fall through the cracks, okay, we have, or we should have, rehabilitation centers. We should have our child transit homes. We should have homes where children are restored. They have psychosocial counseling, therapy, but we don't have we don't have these services in this country, and it's very limited, maybe just one or two organizations that are providing. And the last is restoration. That's where the full recovery comes in. Mom, dad, the school, church, community, everybody has a role to play by having a child protection policy, their staff being trained, by having like justice systems, health systems, school systems, all working, all networking and working together to protect different gaps and opportunities for harm and danger in the different sectors and spaces that the child may be exposed to. So it's not one person's job. I think it's everybody's role to play. Narrowing it down to family units, and I guess that's what a lot of individuals have more control and more say and influence over, is in the family home. That's why we try to exercise that the simple things that we can do is to know who is coming in, to be aware of information, places where we can get help and all that. But generally, child protection is about acknowledging that there is danger, trying to protect children from getting the danger or to prevent it. If they are in the danger already, experiencing the violence and abuse, what can we do to protect them further from harm? And then the restoration. So thanks, Shirley. Have any more to add on? You can sum it up for us.
The other main thing is, please, parents, always look for help. There are helps around. There are programs and services provided. So if you come across any of these issues with child protection, consult people. You can go see the Salvation Army, Major Velana Gomara at the Salvation Army, Baroko. When you come with child issues, especially in child counseling and juvenile justice, we have the desk there at Baroko. We also have One Talk Counseling. We also have Pikinini Watch, Magna Carta when it comes to welfare issues. We have Coalition for Change. We have for youth development program. There's many. You go to welfare at the Catholic at Baroko to look for counselors. And if you need other child protection advice, do consult Pikinini Watch, Magna Carta. They are around. There's always people around in the space of response and prevention together. So especially in the prevention, Mariana, she's running very good program for child and youth development. Yes. And also Pikinini Watch as well. So we, Magna Carta's work here, we're looking at the child rights. So from the response, we're running child protection training for teachers. That's Sacred Arches College. We're teaching child protection to the third year. And we also teach child protection to selected teachers in our own Lasallian schools. That's from the prevention. But response, we do documentation, legal documentation for any issues with child welfare. So there are services around. Do not think that there's no services. Maybe the state doesn't provide services, but the civil societies, the NGO groups, community-based organization, they do run programs. So if you have any program, contact someone, so then they will do the referral pathway. They'll send you to the next, to the next, to the next. At least you can get a package of protection for your child. And reporting is very, very important. Yes. Do report to the people you trust, to those that, will have this mutual trust and maintain confidentiality, and they will, go forward to actually provide help. I know it's very, very serious cases in child protection when it comes to sexual abuse. Sometimes people don't talk, but there are a few people around that they want to help. They want to put a stop. So please look around and try to get support. Don't just ignore it, don't deny it. Thank you, Zohra, once again.
Absolutely. Very encouraging and very detailed there. Thank you, Shirley, for breaking out the possible and available services for our members' attendance here and also for our viewers. So wonderful discussions. We'll have to wrap it up now, and I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being here and for contributing. Andrew, thank you once again. We will now close off with our self-care session or exercise. So Esther has some laminated pictures. Maybe we'll pass that around, or maybe we put that on a chair. Sorry, excuse me. We don't have any available tables, so we'll make use of this free chair. And if people can come around, or maybe we spread it on the floor so they could see the different types of pictures that are there. And you can pick up any picture you like. Just spread it out, put it down and spread it out. And you can pick out like any picture you like. It's a picture that reminds you of maybe a positive event in your life, and you can like tell us why you pick it and why it's important to you. So please gather around, everyone, and feel free to pick an image that resonates with you. Thanks. There's so many pictures, so you might like to take a closer look. You'd like and come. Both of you feel free to come. You're part of the group too, so please join us. Okay, so everyone's got an image. You can either sit down or stand up. That's up to you. I've been sitting down for a while, so I feel like standing up. Okay, so I'll start. So I have here with me a picture of an ice cream. I think the reason why I picked this is when I'm very busy, even when I feel upset or sad about something, I go to buy myself an ice cream down at Mosin Plaza or at Stop and Shop. That's where close to where I work at Harbour City, and it makes me feel happy and it makes me feel good for the day. So yeah, that's why I picked this picture.
So I picked the rainbow, and I identified with it so much just because, you know, like after there's so much chaos and after there's a storm, there's a rainbow. And I like to think of myself as someone who creates, because I'm an actor and an artist and a writer, and I like God being the best and the biggest creator. This is such a great sign of like process and trauma, and no matter what you go through, this is the result. Beautiful people, just something beautiful. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I picked this one. It's an acoustic guitar. Normally during my weekend, I normally spend time just singing with my little daughter, doing rhymes and all this.
Okay, I pick up this bandanas or paliacate, we call it. So this is a symbol of people who want to do like an evolution, to change something. So people use it to identify themselves sometimes. And it's something that you can use to protect yourself from the dust, from the sun, to dry the sweat. So it's like it has many use, and I feel here we are doing like one step in evolution, trying to change something. So this is why I pick up this.
Good day, everyone. I picked this marble because probably this time of the month is marble season. So all our kids are playing marble right now. So they are playing marbles in different ways. So that's why I saw these marbles, I picked the marbles up.
Okay, thank you. I picked these pencils. Like since we are talking about children, when you hate your children or make him or her cry, you will get any drawings, and you get these color pencils, and you choose your favorite color, and you tell him to color a blank paper or any drawings, and then you yourself you use his or a child's hand to draw or either color. Then that you will attract the child's attention, and he or she may be happy to see the colorings or the drawings. So that's why I picked the color pencils. Thank you.
So I'll take my company's hat simply because I'm a lover of minutes.
I actually picked this sunflower. I love sunflower, but figuratively, I don't like to be sunflower. So sunflower, in the morning when the sun comes up, it opens itself. And in the afternoon, it closes itself. So the strength that we have, we mustn't make it a seasonal strength. It has to be a strength instilled in us every day, every time, so we can actually help others who need our strength. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. So thank you for a wonderful wrap-up, and thank you everyone for sharing with us your lovely pictures there. And we officially wind down this session, and we thank you, Andrew, for being with us today, and we look forward to our next session. Do expect an email from us. Hopefully it will be around internet use and the safe and responsible use of internet. So wishing everyone a beautiful day today.
Thank you.